everybody, welcome back to the Rocky Road podcast. I'm here with myself, Mandy, and
Kristin.
Oh, yay!
That's my intro. Super exciting. And
Kristin. Yes, Kristin is here with us today. She's going to share more about her story, and part of the journey with this podcast is to share our stories and be open about it. So welcome to this episode. This is Kristin's. She's taking the floor.
oh yes, I'm taking the couch.
That's true, the couch.
I got my legs
Super
up and
comfy.
everything.
With your tea and your honey.
Mm-hmm.
Glob of honey in your tea.
Makes the world go around.
Honestly, I don't disagree with that. I love them. I love some good honey.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so we're gonna just hear what you have to say today and introduce yourself
Mm-hmm.
and tell us your story. What brought you to the Rocky Road podcast,
Oh my
Kristin?
goodness. Well, I thought you'd never ask.
Let's start at the beginning with
Very
your
good
birthday. That
place
is
to
up for debate.
start. We'll never know when my actual birthday is.
Oh my gosh, that's so weird. Okay, so fun story for all of our listeners that don't know. I bet my life that Kristin's birthday was in March, and all of a sudden on Facebook, this past year, it came up, and it was on Thanksgiving. It was on Thanksgiving. And everyone's like, happy birthday, Kristin. And I'm like, they don't even know when her birthday is. Why are they wishing her a happy birthday on Thanksgiving? And I looked and it was like, it was your birthday. And I felt like the worst friend in the world. I was like, I swore that your birthday was in March. I have no idea what made me think that.
You were so distraught.
Man,
So
I was
very upset.
so distraught. Like, I was so unprepared. Like, no gift, no, like, video, no little jingle, no nothing. I did nothing for you.
Can
I was
I
like,
request, like, a Thanksgiving birthday jingle this year?
well, it's not on Thanksgiving this year.
But it's always close.
That's true.
It's within, like, 3 days. Usually.
That's true. Happy Thanksgiving to Kristin.
Perfect.
Woo,
That doesn't count. I need a different one.
All right, I'll work on it. I
That's
got,
my
like-
belated one. Anyway,
That's true.
I was about to say it's not about me, but this one actually is about me.
It's all about you. It's
all
That's
about
why we
me.
started with your birthday.
Oh,
the fact that you
jeez.
were born in November and not March. So let's get it together here, Mandy. All right.
Yeah. So
Go
this
ahead.
is my foray into, speaking about some of the things that brought me here, some of the things I've gone through, some of the things that I don't really share a lot. And that's the whole premise of what we're doing here. You know, I'm explaining it to you, but you very well know. The whole premise of what we're doing here is sharing so that other people feel less alone and that we can heal ourselves and each other a little bit more. And I think that what I have to share, and let me tell you, I got a lot of stories, but we're going to focus on one specific kind of time in my life today, and you will absolutely hear more about some of the other stuff that kind of make me the quirky weirdo that I am sitting on the couch
The
right
one
now.
we love. Also, side note, the fact that you have lots of stories is like, duh, that's why we're here. So we have so much to say.
I have
and
nothing
so much
to talk
share.
about.
Stay tuned for some nuggets.
I love it.
A good little nugget. You can learn a nugget from every person
Absolutely.
in this world. You can take something.
Just got to ask.
Even if it's something you don't like. You learn that you don't like something about someone.
good point.
So, anyway, back to you.
The more you know.
The more you know.
Yeah.
Little Kristin.
I'll do like a tiny little brief abridged history of my life, but, I'll keep it really tiny.
Did you ever have any nicknames?
People called me, I had some mean nicknames.
Oh man, don't bring those up.
Middle schoolers are mean. But I went by Chris for a long time in college because there were my next door neighbors, the girls who were in the dorm room next to me. I guess actually that is your next door neighbor.
I guess so.
They were Kristin and Kristin.
Oh wow.
And one of them was spelled the same way, one of them was spelled a different way than I was. And then there was like a Christine or something across the hall. So you shouted something that sounded like, down the hallway, and all of us are like, what?
Right.
So I went by Chris. I thought it was like, ooh, she's edgy.
Wow.
I don't know. And then, so
Did you dye your hair black and like wear black eyeliner?
I had a lot of different hair colors.
No
I
way.
was that person who would take this whole back underside.
No, you didn't.
I did. I have pictures. I bleached, and it was like, at one point it was blue. There was some pink in there. There was some
What?
purple. Oh, yeah.
Okay, you have to pull these.
And
pictures
then
out.
one time,
These are the pictures of your thumbnail for this.
yes, the pink hair. Then one time I went to Relay for Life, and I had hair longer than what I have now. And they're like, oh, and we have, of course, after the candlelight vigil, they're like, oh, we have locks for love if you want to get your hair chopped off to make wigs. I'm like, okay, because you're crying because everything is so emotional.
Wow, way to
got a whole
grab you at an emotional
foot
moment.
of my hair cut off, and so then I had like this little bob, and then like the bleach was still there, so it was like peeking out. It looked intentional, but it wasn't.
Wow.
Yeah. I like to change my appearance a lot.
Yet your hair has been the same since I've met you.
Yeah, because I got sick of it. I thought I was a redhead for a while. Like this mahogany cherry chocolate.
What?
I will find all of the pictures and send them to you. I'm not a redhead. I never went blonde. It wouldn't look right. At least I know that.
Wow.
Yeah,
the more you
but
know.
Like, yeah, it's one of those things where like I was just kind of changing my appearance a lot, and hair was something that I'm like, it grows back, it's fine.
True, that's
And then
true.
I started getting tattoos, and my mom got real upset.
Wow, that does not change.
Yeah, but I also, like, not a lot of mine are too visible, too. It's not like I got, like...
Me either.
I knew someone with... with your forearm sleeve. I met someone with a Phillies P on his cheek, and I was like, well, okay.
Wow,
let's hope that
that's bold.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Man, yikes. Okay, so Kristin, I was thinking nicknames like Little Kristin, like, I've never met, like, a little baby that was Kristin.
There's a lot of us in the 90s.
That's true. A lot of Amandas, too.
That's true. Ugh, Amanda. No, I had, nothing really, though. My mom would call me princess a lot, but kind of sarcastically, because she thought I was being too princessy.
Nice.
She's like, oh, the princess.
You're not a princess. I mean, you are, but, like, you don't act like...
You're
not, like, yeah.
I was a very rough child.
Okay, so let's start with your adoption.
Yes, so...
Because that's so key.
And fun fact, speaking of adoption, or birthdays and adoption, all of the above, my birth mom's birthday is the day after mine.
Wow.
Yeah. So let's talk about rough. And like today, they talked about like adopt and all this stuff in the service today. Like she had a baby, gave that baby up, turned 18 the next day, and then went through 21 Mother's Days without like having her child. Anyway,
That's crazy. Wow.
I'm really looking forward to having her on.
We are recording this on Mother's Day. That's why you're...
That's true. Yeah, timeline is all over the place. But yes, this is Mother's Day today. And we're thinking about like Mother's Days that were really hard. And she had my sister, I think she was 6 or so when I met her. So she had 15 Mother's Days. Wow. Knowing like,
I'm a mom,
wonder how my daughter's
I have
doing.
No kid with me physically.
So tough stuff.
I can't wait to talk to her too.
I will make more sense when you meet her.
I can't wait.
It's like, you're going to need to be caffeinated.
Hey, I'm here for it. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh,
like, what a strong person, honestly. I just don't know. That's a huge thing to, like, give your child up for adoption, knowing that you're hoping that they're going to have a better life than you can provide for them at the time, but that's crazy. But anyway,
I continue to say, like, the respect that they meaning my mothers, show each other when they're together is just like when they met when my mom was 17 and pregnant, and my parents were in their, I don't know, I guess like late early 30s, I think. I should know this, but they didn't meet again until I brought everyone back together. And just the fact that like my mom's like, we love you so much, thank you so much, because they couldn't bear children, and she couldn't care for the child, and so it's just this mutual respect that they both have for each other as my mothers.
Which is crazy.
Pretty cool. It'd be interesting to have both of them on.
Wow, that would be
I don't think my
so
mom would want to. I mean, she might, but my birth mom would be much more likely to share.
Yeah. We'll meet her first, and then maybe we'll bring your adopted mom in and put them together.
That would be cool.
In season 3 or 4.
Oh my gosh, that'd be amazing.
That would be so cool.
But yeah, so
you were adopted right when you were born.
Yes. And my parents didn't really know that they were going to get me. Like, they thought they were, but she didn't make the decision until the last minute. And so thank goodness my older sister was a girl, because they had like all of the, like the baby clothes and stuff like that. They had the crib, they had all that stuff, because they said they didn't want to set anything up, because they didn't want to get their hopes up if she decided not to, which, I mean, and even after it goes through, there's still a period of time where the mother can decide that she's changed her mind. And so it's like this kind of period of suspended, like, ooh,
Right.
should be get attached to this beautiful baby girl that looks like I gotta show you my baby pictures. Man, I'll be humble, but I was a cute kid.
Did you have a lot of hair?
I was born, it looks like a bouffant. It's so funny. It's like a full, like, toupee.
Oh my gosh. I
And
can't
that,
wait.
like, I
That
look
could
like
be your thumbnail. Man, we have so many options.
So many. Go back into the archives.
This is great.
Oh, man.
I'm
Yeah.
here for it. All right, you were adopted. You grew up here in Pennsylvania.
I did. I grew up in a pretty affluent county, good education. Kids bullied the crap out of me in middle school, but that's, the story for a lot of people. High school, I was super into like musicals and
Theater.
theater and all that, and I was in the marching band by choice.
So was
The
I.
Color God.
Oh, okay, I
Those-
did actual marching band.
Those like velour
Oh my
tunic
gosh, that's true. Wow.
shirts.
With,
Yeah,
like,
it was
face
super
paint?
fashionable. It was not face paint, but it might as well have been.
I was in the marching band by choice and played the clarinet.
Yeah.
I mean, let's talk about really sad, honestly.
You might as well just
like,
walk
clarinets
around
are
with it.
so
You can't-
pointless in marching bands. You can't even hear them. Like, why are you even there? You're just existing. It was for social reasons.
Oh my gosh. For social reasons. Yeah, so then I got...
So you're in high school. You decided to go to school for music?
Yes,
'Cause
I
you
did.
loved it?
I am a music therapist. I did not get an undergrad degree in music therapy because I didn't know it existed. I was between, like, it all makes sense now in hindsight, but I was between psychology or music. And I think in my 17-year-old brain, I was like, music's more fun. So I got a music degree. But then again, it
You
was
were
like
between psychology and music?
Yeah.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah. And I just like, I was,
One makes no money and one makes no money.
Right?
Really what it comes down to.
great. Yeah, it was, and now like as a music therapist, if I knew that music therapy existed, I probably would have done that. But also, I don't think I had the emotional maturity that I had when I went to get my other degree after my undergrad. I just don't think it would have shaked out the way that it has, which, I mean, again, there's always a reason for it, and I just didn't know what that was. But so I got my undergrad, did a lot of like side jobs. I was always working. I like filled every single moment of every day.
You still do that?
I know, it's like a really bad habit, which is why I'm like sniffling and sick right now, because my body's like, whoa, Nelly, relax for a second. So it's like forcing me to relax. But so finished my undergrad, didn't really know I tried to audition a little bit. Props to anyone who is a full-time performer, because the audition scene just like broke me. It was so competitive. It was so difficult.
Your undergrad was in vocal performance.
Yeah, and I went from this small school where, I mean, this is, again, like I'm trying to tell the truth but also be humble about it. Like, there was never a question that I was not going to be given a role in the opera. Like, it's like, which lead am I going to get in the opera?
Right.
Because of the size of the school.
Yeah.
And because there are only so many,
Realistic.
performers in this kind of scene. So it's like, okay, there's 3 senior girls. Which one of them is going to get which lead kind of thing. So that kind of expectation of, oh, it's just what am I going to get picked for? Like, it was rough. I did it for about a year. I was in one opera in Philadelphia, and I was in like a couple little cabaret, like variety show type things in the city of New York. I can't even remember where they were at this point, because it was just like a hope and a prayer to try to get some exposure. You know what I mean?
I love listening to you, because I feel like when you meet a musical theater person, you know them, and you do not strike me as a musical theater operatic person.
Oh, really?
Like, your personality, you're so grounded and just like so calm. I feel like so many musical theater people are always singing. Like, when I was in college, because obviously I went to school for music therapy too. When I was in college, I was like, can you please put your instruments away? Like, I have to put my clarinet away, put your instrument away.
Yeah.
Stop singing. Stop.
That's really interesting that you say that, because, and like we're going to talk in detail about like my time in North Carolina, but the person that I was with in North Carolina very early on told me, you really, like, you sing a lot. It's kind of annoying. Can you stop?
Okay, that's rude.
Yeah, so it's like, red flag. We'll talk about the millions of red flags, but he's like, can you stop doing that? You're just like sitting in the car humming. And like I trained myself to stop doing that.
Yeah. I think it's different. I'm going to caveat what I said with in a personal life. Because when I'm in the music school, in the music building, it's everywhere all the time. And you're in the stairwells and they're just singing. And I'm just like, I am around so much music. Can you please stop? Versus when you're in your own personal, like I sing all the time too in my house and do everything, but it's different. I feel like then you're practicing your parts in the stairwells and down the hallways. And I'm like, okay, you can stop.
We're
Take
good.
a breather.
Yeah.
It's going to be okay. But man, I love a good musical and a good opera. So amazing. Love it. Here for it.
I gotta get my chops back up to snuff.
I hope you have videos. I want to see them.
I might be able to find. We did Hansel and Gretel, my senior year, and let me tell you, I was Gretel.
Oh my gosh,
it was so cute. I had like those dimple freckles.
Oh my gosh.
I have to find like the highest note I've ever hit on stage is in that show, and man,
Were you a coloratura?
I was trying to be.
Okay.
That's
a really high soprano for people that don't know.
Yeah, it's like basically vocal gymnastics up in the rafters.
Yeah.
I have one version of, it's basically variations on Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. It's a Mozart flute soprano duet. And the flute and I were competing runs. So, like, I could never get back to that point ever again. Anyway, let's talk about.
Wow, my ears. Anyway, take another sip of your tea.
It's coffee now.
Oh, great. With honey?
Mm-hmm.
Coffee with honey?
Mm-hmm.
What?
It's delicious.
I've never done that. Okay. Listeners, if you've ever done that,
I forgive you.
Please tell us, because
Really
I've never even heard of that.
And then I usually put like a tiny bit of creamer in it, but I don't want dairy with all my congestion. Just to make it worse.
Wow. It's so specific. All right. So you went to college for music performance. You did a little bit of performance-y things after your undergrad.
And then my survival job was like I wait tables, and I worked at this really cool restaurant that, like, I swear if I knew how to save money, I would be set for life, because like easy come, easy go in that place. It's like very affluent, like horse country near Chester County, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Come in and pay like ridiculous. I'm like I look back and go, what were you thinking?
You should have just worked
You
in the
silly
food
child.
business.
You 20-year-old. Like, what are you doing? Save money. Oh my gosh. I can make like $10,000 a summer. It was like just exhausting. But when you work 3 doubles in a row,
that's crazy.
You know, and you don't have time to go do anything. You just have a bunch of money. So
you did that.
Then I went to grad school. And then all my money went away. I found out about music therapy. I was really feeling like stagnant and like I needed to do something else. I knew that I wanted to do other things, but I didn't know what they were. And then I did a little bit of research. And I was like, oh my gosh, this combines like the psychology aspect plus my music degree, and like my love for people and wanting to help people. And it just seemed perfect. And so I went I only applied to a couple different places, but the one that I ended up attending was Appalachian State. And yes, I'm pronouncing it correctly. It is not Appalachian.
That's what I say.
Appalachian. You get a lesson on that the first second you get down there.
Sounds painful.
Appalachia.
Yeah.
It was over in Boone, North Carolina, and holy moly, the views. Like, I can't wait until we go there. We got to go on a camping trip. I'm not kidding.
It's happening next year.
It's like, it's so pretty and humbling, and like the town is 3,333 feet elevation.
Is that in the Blue Ridge Mountains?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
It's like nestled in a little valley.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing.
We can record a podcast there.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I would love to. Oh my gosh, there's someone I would love to talk to. She was my mentor.
Oh
during
my
thesis.
gosh, that'd be so fun.
She's a really really cool chick.
Mark that down. Put that on the list.
Yeah.
All right, so you went to Appalachian State. How old were you then?
I was 20. I don't know anymore. I think I started when I was like 23 or 23 maybe, 24.
Okay. You graduate undergrad usually around 22, 23.
I was 21 when I graduated in the fall of 2011, and I started, so I was like 24. I started in like 2014. I'll find the dates for you.
That's fine.
We'll put them in the
Not
notes.
important.
Yeah. So I was in my mid-20s. I had not been down to that town until I had already accepted. And I was like, I guess I have to find an apartment. So my mom and I went down, found an apartment. And I was like, well, I hope I like the town, because I didn't have any idea what was there. It was great. It was beautiful. I attended, started in the fall like normal, didn't know anybody. Had a cohort of 4 other grad students, so only 5 people in our grad program. And very quickly I met an individual who is kind of the bulk of our story time today. So before I really go into too much about like that relationship and its rise and its fall and all that, I kind of want to throw out, and I don't know what an easier way to say this other than like a trigger warning. If there's anybody who's listening who has an unsafe home situation or knows that they might have some sort of reaction, or, you know, sometimes you don't know when you're going to have a reaction, just might think better about pressing pause or listening to this another time, or if there's like
small
children and you know, things that you might not want to explain to them about, go ahead and just press pause, listen later. But for anybody still with me, so I met someone who was a piano student. He was a senior, I think, when I was a first year grad student.
So he was younger than you?
He was, yeah, a little younger.
Man, you and the younger boys.
Really, though, it's weird. I dated someone in Westchester. I dated someone when I was 21. He was 29. And that's the biggest age gap ever. We taught marching band together. It was
fun.
Super wholesome.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But
that one time at band camp?
But he was also, like, he worked in the restaurant industry, too. And so it was like we had multiple connections. And he graduated from Westchester, like, 7 years before me. But it was just one of those, like, funny things. And I was like, I don't really like older men, which is probably a good thing. I don't know, 21 to 29, like, there was a lot of maturity differences there. Like, he was a great person. And, like, I think if I was a little more mature emotionally, we probably would have done really well. But I was like, maybe not. It was a little weird.
You met him in school?
Yes. So back to North Carolina. Met him in school. It was through, like, I think every music school has, like, a lounge area that people, it's, like, usually there's, like, a practice room hallway, and there's, like, an area with, like, a bunch of couches with maybe a microwave, because people know that music students live in the music building, and so you need to, like, get them a place to snack and rest.
Vending machines.
Yeah, vending machines, yes, all of the above. Like, there's one in every single one.
Yep.
And if there's not, get on it, because it's, like, the best place to, like, socialize, to relax a little bit. So he and I would spend, like, we would run into each other a lot there. And we just started spending some time together. And being brand new to the area, it was really nice to kind of have someone who, like, seemed like he really wanted to spend time with me. And, like, he was very complimentary. And that'll, you know, the whole image thing will come up later too. But very complimentary, just very, like, made me feel special and wanted and loved, and like I was being paid attention to. And I also want to say, before we get too deep into, like, you know, red flag city, is that I'm not trying to ruin his life, so I'm not going to share any specific details about, like, him, his hometown, anything name. Like that, his name, like, that's not what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. We're just here to share stories, not
like,
to ruin.
Exactly. Like, whatever happened, and wherever he is in life right now, I don't care.
Right.
Yes, I'm concerned for the people around him, and I always will be. There's always, like, that voice in the back of my head, like, what if he's a father? Should I call that person and, like, hey, CYS, go ahead and, you know, knock on that door. But that's not my intention to ruin lives. It's just, but I can only control so much. So
but it's a part of your story.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what we're here to share. It's your story. So you met him, you started hanging out. He was very kind to you, very sweet.
Yeah. But I have to say that, like, so I'm not going to keep dancing around, like, our topic here. Like, for the entire 4 years that we were together, it was physically, mentally, and emotionally abusive. And from the get-go, there were a couple of things that, and this is again why it's so important that we share, if I would have shared those things or would have thought about those things, they would have been, again, like, oh, that's a red flag. That's not acceptable behavior. But because, again, I'm a 2, I fix people, I solve other people's problems, I thought it was my responsibility to say, like, okay, this is a thing that he's dealing with, that maybe I can help him through it, which is not, it's not my responsibility.
And maybe we'll fix it and it'll get better.
It'll be fine. It just happened once, no big deal.
Yeah.
So, things started, like, they started really well. He was, like, really, he wanted to take me out. He thought I was beautiful. He would tell me that. He would tell me how smart I was and all this stuff. And then I remember there was one, like, kind of pivot point where he got really, really jealous that one of his friends was helping me with something. It just was because that person happened to be there, and, like, he threw a tizzy fit. He drove home, like, wouldn't talk to me. I went to his apartment to try to talk to him, and, like, we tried to talk it out for a while, and he just was like drew these hard lines of, like, just jealousy. And, like, what he did is, so we were sitting, like, on the edge of his bed talking, and he grabbed my shoulder and pushed me back down onto the bed. And that's the moment that I should have said, this is unacceptable. I'm never going to speak with you again. You do not touch me. Yeah. But what I said was, never do that again. And he was apologetic. And of course that wasn't the last time, because once you tolerate something, it happens again, and it culminates and it gets worse. So,
and when you're in the moment, you also don't see it looking zoomed out and looking back. Like, I know that for me, like, when I look back now, there's so many different things that you realize versus when you're in it at the time.
Exactly. And that's one of the biggest things that I hope for in sharing, is that when you're in it, and I've had, again, like, I had a family member after the fact ask me, they're like, are you stupid? Why did you let that happen?
Yeah.
Because I didn't realize it in the moment, how bad it was, and you don't notice it.
Yeah.
You just,
and
like,
also,
you're like, oh, it's about time for that to happen again. And it just, unfortunately, becomes normal. He apologized. He this, he that, he that.
And
this is my life now.
You probably didn't, like, have a bruise. You didn't have a broken bone. It was just a push.
His argument to me, he's like, I've never hit you.
Right.
Because there was only one time in our entire relationship where there was, like, an open hand contact, and it was to my face. It's like, well, that was very clear. But it would be, like, he would grab me by my shoulders and he would shake me like a little kid. I don't know how to describe it. It was just like you could see a different face.
Yeah. And
he would just be so frustrated. He would just shake me. There was a lot of compression. Like, there's one time, and I didn't realize this until, like, a week later. I'm pretty sure he broke my finger. I didn't know it in the moment because he had grabbed my hand and was so angry. He just, like, squeezed it. And it's like a couple days later, I was trying to play piano. I was like, what's happening here? My index finger just wasn't working properly. And so...
And then again, in the moment, you're like, oh, it's fine. It's going to get better.
Exactly.
Or this is just how it is. I've never been in this serious of a relationship or something. There's always a justification in the moment. You don't realize what's happening. And when it's behind closed doors, nobody else sees it either.
Well, and that's the other really difficult part to identify from outside, is that he was all about appearances.
Yeah.
He was all about specific people that he wanted to look like, he wanted to dress like. I got, like, and listen, I love being strong. I got unnecessarily obsessed with powerlifting, and I was 140 pounds, eating like 1,200 calories a day, going to the gym at 5:30 in the morning, squatting 225, deadlifting 200, because that's what he wanted me to do. Like, that is very impressive in a lot of ways, but also very extreme. And I think that's part of the reason that I have, like, a little bit of an aversion to, like, getting back into a program like that. Because anytime, like, he taught me all of that. Anytime I think about, like, oh, I did this program in North Carolina, it's like a weird response,
right,
mentally and emotionally, that, like, am I doing this because I want to, or it's because I still have that, like, compulsion. But it just got comfortable that was normal. And that's the worst place for a man or a woman in this situation to be in, is comfortable, that this is just what happens at home. And then so we lived together. Like, I went to an internship, he went to an internship, but, like, we lived together before and after those periods of time. So there were periods of time where we, like, physically separate from each other. And I think those are the best times, actually, because we, like, got to live our own lives. Like, I lived up in Yonkers. Oh, this is going to be another nugget with Sister Maria.
Oh, yes. Can't wait.
She turned 73 when I lived with her.
She's still alive?
I don't know.
Did we ask it?
I think I have to look. I have to see. I thought I saw her. She's on Facebook.
I mean, it's not that long ago, so she's not 80 yet.
She might still be, like, and she wasn't necessarily in bad health either. Like, she had to climb the stairs to get into her house, and she still did it successfully every single day. So she still drove.
Yeah.
Terrifyingly, but she drove. She learned to drive in Brooklyn.
Right,
like, that's just like,
go for it.
Get it. Yeah. So we lived separately from each other for periods of time, and you know, I think that one of the most healthy semesters that I had was when I was back from internship and he was somewhere else. You know, but he...
So what made you guys want to still stay together? You, quote, air quotes, loved each other.
I think at that point, I was in so deep, like multiple years. At the beginning, it wasn't as bad. The beginning didn't happen as frequently. It wasn't as, like, it was, like, only when he drank, or, you know... It was
it was a slow progression, and then you, because of the time commitment, you're like, well, I've invested this much into it already. This is what it is, and this is the expectations. Might as well stay.
Yeah, it's like and again, he's not diagnosed, but like it's one of the things with narcissistic personality traits is that they're magnetic. Brainwash. Yeah, and that's exactly what it was. Like, I did things with him that, like, I don't know, just, like, he would convince me, like, oh, let's do this will be fun together. And I'm like, okay. But just because he wanted to and he was so excited to do it, I was like, sure, why not? Like, we would spend money and time on things that I didn't really want to do. But he was like, well, this is what I want. This is what we want. And then he got into a school in another town, and, like, because he wanted to go to grad school. And we moved there, and, like, when we were looking at apartments, he was, like, looking at, like, budget and things like that. He's like, yeah, but, like, I want a nice apartment. I want somewhere. I'm like, you're in grad school. I just got done being in grad school. We are broke. Like, why do you want to spend this much money on an apartment? We ended up signing for that apartment because that's what he wanted to do. And it's one of those things where, like, if I disagreed with him, I knew that there wasn't going to be a good outcome. So I was like, okay, it's fine. This is my role, is, like, the doting, you know.
And it's just a little bit... more often than not, where it's like, it's just a little over our budget. It's not like a $6,000 apartment.
Yeah,
you know,
it
like
wasn't
some
anything
outrageous
ridiculous
thing where you're like, yeah, that's impossible. It's like, okay, well, let's try it. And
yeah,
then it's just,
it was just enough to be like, okay, sure.
Yeah. That slow process of manipulation. Sometimes intentional, sometimes not.
Yeah, and I don't know that it was intentional for him. I don't think he realized he was doing it. It was just his personality.
Yeah.
Just how he was.
The way he's hardwired.
I think that the term gaslighting is used a lot inappropriately lately, but, like, this was a prime example of gaslighting. It's like, you are the problem. You are the reason that I'm hurting you.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, why do you make me do this? I'm like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You are the one who X, Y, and Z. And it would never be over anything big. Like, it was one of those things where if I took a stand against him in any way, shape, or form, if I disagreed with him, it was just like, okay, well, this is going to happen now. And it was just like, I didn't understand that I had a choice in the matter and that I could just leave. And so, like, this is, again, like,
Well, and I think in our human minds, we piece together, oh, this person's really kind and caring to me. They compliment me. They love me.
They love me, exactly.
So that's justified in your brain, where you're like, oh, well, if somebody didn't like you, they would also not say nice things to you.
Yeah.
But the fact that they do, it starts to mess with your mind, and you're like, what? Like, you love me, but you push me.
It's easy to mentally reject someone who's mean to you all the time, but someone who's nice to you, like, 70% of the time and is a total, like, destructive monster 30% of the time, it's still enough of a difference to say, okay, I can handle this.
And it's just that little edge, like the rent is like just a little bit that it just goes too far versus something extreme. Like if you were going to the hospital with broken bones every week and you had bad like concussions normally, like on the regular, I mean, then I feel like in your head, you'd be like, well, that's obviously wrong. I mean, yes, that happens to some people and they still go back to that person. But in this world of like this little tiny bit that just goes too far, you start to blame yourself.
And it was just like, yeah, this is it.
Yeah.
So
how many years was this?
Just under 4. Because I met him right when I moved down there. And it was a 4-ish year program. So I'd say like 3.5 years. And then we moved. We did move to that apartment. He started his grad program. I was invited to a wedding of one of the people in my cohort. And this wedding was during, I think, like the weekend right before his first week of classes. So like we said, we're like, I'll just go alone. Too stressful for you. And what a freaking blessing that was, because I rented a little Nissan Note, which is a cute little car, to drive up the East Coast from Central North Carolina up to New York State. And I drove up to this place where just like such an intimate collection of this couple's friends and family were gathered. And I think I realized like when I was there, like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy I'm here alone. Because it was so much fun. It poured rain. We tented out in the rain, and it was just like this fun, like carefree, relaxed, really carefree experience. And so I was sitting, and I knew a bunch of the people there because there were a bunch of people from North Carolina, but I also met a bunch of new people, and I love meeting new people. Like I think it's super exciting to just get in touch with strangers and be like, oh, you love this couple? I love this couple. We're family now.
Right.
Yeah.
So mutual connection.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like every single person there was just there for this love. And when they were saying their vows, it was so beautiful and so like just pure that I remember sitting. I was actually standing because I was like queuing up music, but I was standing in the back just looking at all these people smiling and crying and listening to these beautiful things this couple had to say. And I quite literally in my head said, I do not have anything positive to say about my partner. Like I was imagining, because we talked about marriage. I flat out told him I wouldn't move to this other town unless I had a ring on my finger. Thank God that didn't happen. Just thank the Lord that he saved me from that. So I knew in that moment that I was going to go back down and I was going to leave. And
which is so interesting that you had to be removed from the situation. Because in my story, I feel it's the same way. It's like when you're in it, you're in it. So when you're questioning or you're wondering or you don't know what's happening, removing yourself from the hometown, the house, the situation, removing yourself and going to a third location, like third party alone, brings so much clarity, I think, for people. So even people that are in this situation, or like for me, sometimes when I'm like, in just my life now, I'm like, man, I feel like I'm just so stuck. It's like I drive an hour or 2 hours and go for a hike to get out and think and get out of the norm. And sometimes that's just so helpful. So you going to this wedding is that picture. Like you're going out and you're like, wow, I feel free and I feel open and this is really great. And then you knew going home what you were going back to.
Yeah, I had made the decision.
And that helped you see it clearer by doing that.
Yeah. I was out of my little bubble. And then it was during the eclipse that whole week. And so I knew I had a couple days off. I was like, oh, I'm going to go up and see my family anyway. So like I went to State College to see my birth mom and my sisters. And we did like the whole, like go watch the eclipse thing, which is such a bizarre experience. And then I went to see my parents, and we went on like a little overnight on their boat that they have with my grandparents. And it was then that I kind of talked to them. I was like, I made a decision and I just want to know if I can come home for a little while. And they didn't really ask any questions. I didn't tell them why. I just said that I just need to come home. I was home for a month. Like the day that I came home, I was like, all right, resumes out. So I sent all of my stuff out to like all across the country because I was like, I've got nothing holding me down.
Right.
I've got no reason to be any location. And the 2 job offers I got were up here in Lehigh Valley and over in State College, 5 minutes away from my birth parents. I was like, okay, I hear you.
Yeah. You need to be with family.
Got it. Message received. Rewind for just a second, but when I drove back down, he knew. Like when I came, like I didn't want to talk to him on the phone, like when I was driving. And then like I dropped my car off at the Enterprise, and he came to pick me up, and like he could feel it. And so it's one of those things where I think he knew he was living on borrowed time with me, and it was only a matter of time before I wised up to the fact that I didn't deserve that at all. So it took me years, but...
How did he take it?
He was upset, but again, I think he just like... When I didn't want to talk to him on the drive down, he had like 8 hours to think about the possibilities.
Right.
And like... So I slept in the living room that night. Like I slept in the... like on a pile of blankets or something. And then, like, 2 days later, my dad came to help me move everything up. I think it was, like, maybe the next day. It was very, very soon after. There wasn't a lot of time.
So you moved home.
Yeah. He didn't hurt me that day.
Did he...
Which was interesting.
Did you talk to him ever again after that?
So we talked on the phone briefly, like... I was struggling just because it was so different and everything was just so hard and the change and everything. And so I texted him something, another inside joke we used to have. And so like we did talk a little bit for a couple weeks after that. And then he's like, yeah, listen, this is your decision to make. You made this decision. You can't tell me that you're hurting. I was like, that's fair. And then I was done. I was like, I was looking for some sort of like, because he was the only person who knew what our relationship was like. None of my friends.
Your family.
Nobody. Except for I called the couple when I was moving back up. I called that couple because they knew that I was kind of in a weird spot. I like mentioned something to them the next day. But I was like, it's your honeymoon. I don't want to bother you. She's like, no, please call. We just like, we're sunburnt. We're on the couch. like call us. And like that's the only person that knew for the longest time. And then I shared it with my best friend like months later, and it was just like, yeah, it was. How do you start that conversation?
Yeah,
you know, you can't. It kind of slipped out to my parents when I was mad at them one time. Because
and it's
like
something that you're still, even though you were strong enough to leave, those years of manipulation and to how you viewed yourself.
Oh yeah,
would be a huge way of explaining it to somebody. Like you're probably at times, even I don't know how you are now, but like you're probably like, was that my fault? Like, is this my fault?
I've come a long way.
Yeah,
I really have. And I know that like I've mentioned this before. Like Cody, he's like 6 foot tall teddy bear. Like very strong. He likes wrestling. He likes roughhousing. He likes like being silly. And I had to share with him really early on. Like he would just like, you know, just playful, nothing in like to any harm. But he'll look at me like, you want to wrestle? I'm like, no, honey, thank you. Like now I can be like, no, thank you. Wrestle like with the dog. Exactly. He's like a big kid. And I love him to death. Obviously, I'm marrying him. So he would, like pick me up or something, and I'm like, okay, I'm done, and I would have to just like, please, I need a second.
Yeah.
And like he would get really sad because he's like, I made her feel that way. And I'm like, no, it's my internal response to what's happening around me. And since then, like, and he even a couple months later was like, you got a lot better with that, which is good that he was noticing, and he was able to check himself and say like, I know you don't like that. It makes me really sad because I like being silly and like tumbling around and like, but, so that was definitely like a learning curve is physical comfort with other people.
Especially male in a romantic way.
For sure. And just feeling safe. Yeah. And that's something that like Cody does really, really, really well is that like when I shared this with him, because it was important that I shared with him very early on.
Yeah.
when I knew that the relationship was starting to progress, because I was like, I just don't want you to think that this is anything having to do with you, but it'll be easier if you know.
Yeah.
So that we can work through this together. And he was like, I just promise to always keep you safe.
Yeah.
And that's,
Well, you've
a priority
obviously
for
made a
him.
lot of progress because you just posted a picture the other day of him, fireman, carrying you.
That's true.
Saying how much you couldn't wait to marry him. And I was like, wow, what a picture to
Fireman's care. Yeah, exactly. Like, that's the quintessential Cody. It's like,
just pick you up and...
yeah, that was at his sister's wedding. He's like, can I carry you in over my shoulder? I'm like, will it make you happy? He goes, yeah, but I don't want to do it if you don't want me to. So I was like, why don't we walk in and we'll like do a little dance and then you can throw me over your shoulder.
Right. Oh
He's like,
God.
okay. He's so excited. Oh, anyway, but yeah.
But I'm sure after the fact of moving home here, getting yourself resituated, that's when you came to the church here.
Yeah,
and kind of started finding who you were again. And then you met Cody.
I think that's a big part of it too, is the whole identity portion, is saying I didn't have an identity.
Yeah.
And I put
He
my
created
identity
one.
in other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I would take in everything around me and be the person that everyone needed me to be. Whereas I think that I'm so much stronger now. I don't know how I got through it. I really don't, because I don't think I was mentally strong, but I had to be in certain situations.
You got through it, but it also was a long time. So that strength like sustained you, but it also wasn't strong enough at the time to get you out of it. And then once you did, you're like, wow, I deserve so much better, and I can be so much better, and this was wrong, but it took a long time.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because that made you who you are. And that's why I love you.
That's why I love you. Yeah, it's really important for people to step back and evaluate their lives and their relationships, and not even negative ones, just all of them.
Yeah.
Am I bringing what I need to this relationship? Is it bringing what it needs to me? And if the answer is no, get those scissors and cut it off. Like, there's no reason for us to drain ourselves and the people around us. There's just such an interesting balance of power in relationships that can get really tricky.
Yeah.
Really tricky.
And I think, too, questioning your own sanity, honestly, is like a huge thing. I remember just thinking, in a couple of relationships that I've been in, not all, and not to like a level of where you were kind of in that, but when you're like, am I crazy? Is there something wrong with me?
Yeah.
And questioning that, I think, is what is like a huge red flag of, what is this person doing? And now I know, like, for me in my life, I'm like, is this person pushing me towards God or away from God? And that's a huge red flag, one way or the other.
Well, and that's the scale that I didn't have at that point.
Right.
He convinced me I was atheist. He convinced me that science was the only answer, and like I wasn't like devil worshiping or anything, but he was like,
it's just science.
It was
because he wanted to be your God.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oof. Gosh, that hurts. Yes, it's true. Yeah, he did.
It's a level of control that he wanted. And he like tried to make your brain think that. And yeah, that's a hard place to be in. And that's like a long way to recover too. Like once you're out of it, you're like, wow, what happened? But then in our society, people expect you to be okay in 6 months, 1 year. Like, you're good. It's been a year, It's like that stuff that's going to last forever for you. Like, that'll always be a part of you learning and processing and growing. Even in a healthy relationship now with Cody and getting married and all the things to look forward to. It's like those triggers are still going to be with you forever. And they might change and adjust, but that made you who you were.
And I think that my ability to use whatever platform I can to share with other people that you can be safe and you don't have to handle what you think you deserve. I know I wouldn't have listened to that in the moment, but the louder we are, the more attention we'll gather.
Yeah.
And it's really important to just, if there's a red flag right off the bat, Notice it. Yeah.
So if you could pick a song that would describe this season of your life, what would it be?
So the song that I made this playlist for when I was driving back home from moving out of North Carolina, and I have 2 songs. I'm cheating. I have 2 songs. The one song that I listened to a lot during that drive was one that my best friend actually listened to when she was going through her divorce, and it's Sarah Bareilles' Bluebird. It's a good one. It's basically like spread your wings, figure it out. The story in the song was a little bit backwards from my perspective, like of who made the decision, but it was still like gather your strength and rise up. And then when I moved here to the Valley, it still blows my mind that it was only a month after I left. I moved here in September of that year. There was a song called Rain Clouds by Arcadian Wild that I listened to a lot. Like that whole album was just, I think it was nostalgic because it reminded me of Appalachia because it has like a lot of violins and twangy guitar and things like that, and like stomp and holler type vocal kind of things. Tell me you're a music nerd without telling me you're a music nerd. I like this because of the
The musicians are just incredible.
Exactly. But the whole thing was, one of the first lines is, I'm sick and tired of these rain clouds, and saying, put down your roots. And I was trying to figure out, do I want to put my roots down here? Is this where I want to be? And 4-ish years later, here I am.
Yeah.
Still growing. And so that's the most important part, I think, is that I'm still growing. And
still rooting, too. Yeah.
In a lot of different ways.
That's great. I think, too, for you, obviously, we'll hear more of your story throughout the episodes and all of that, but you're a beautiful person and I love you so much. But if you could say anything to somebody that may be questioning in this season, like what would you say to them? I mean, because I think for you, you had your parents. Some people had a bad upbringing, don't even want to go home, and then they're in a bad home life or like relationship or whatever, and they have nowhere to go. Like, what would you do? What would you say to somebody that's questioning it or questioning themselves? Like, am I crazy? That whole process.
That's really tricky because feeling hopeless and alone is like the crux of it, right? And I would say, like, find someone you trust as a mentor. Meanwhile, I had a mentor, and there was a moment where I was like, should I tell her right now? And I didn't do it. And I think that it can be so much easier said than done. Find a trusted advisor. Go this, go that. Just, if someone's listening and feels that, should I? The answer is yes. Should I tell her? Yes. If you even for a moment feel that you're unsafe, and I know there's all sorts of opinions on, like, police involvement and public service and what people should and shouldn't do. No matter where you are, there is someone in the world who wants to listen. And so even if it's an anonymous text line, even if it's something, just you need to talk to someone. Doesn't necessarily have to be face-to-face, because you probably don't want to talk to someone face-to-face.
Yeah.
If you're not related in any sort of house of worship, you probably don't have an advisor. Like, there's so many people. If that's happened to me right now, I'm surrounded.
Yeah.
I am fine.
Yeah.
But in that moment, the isolation was the hardest part. And so not isolating yourself, letting one person in. If I would have let one of my friends in, it would have made all the world of difference.
Yeah. And
it wasn't a very straightforward answer, so I'm sorry.
Well, no, I mean, it's important. Like, find one person. If that means you walk into a church, if that means that you walk into a counseling center, if that means that you call a counseling center, like you said, you can't maybe not see somebody, like, find what you need. And it's not just it's not just physical safety, it's emotional safety and verbal safety and mental safety. Like for yourself, if you think like you're in a relationship or in a situation that is unhealthy and causing you harm in any way, there's avenues for help, which is part of why we're here with this. I mean, we're both music therapists, but we're also not like high-end licensed counselors, so we're not going to offer any kind of licensed advice, I guess. You're not licensed yet.
It's never gonna
Eventually. But it is important. Like, we've been through these seasons and we've walked and we've found the help we needed. Maybe not in the perfect timing, but maybe in the perfect timing too. Like it's a process, I think, learning that it's okay to be out there and to share that something really hard is happening or has happened to you, and you're still cared for and loved by someone in the world. And that's really important to be reminded of. So
this is one of those episodes where I'm going to be sure to add resources and websites and things like that. There's brilliant creative minds out there that, for example, have like the one locally here. It's called Turning Point. They have a button at the top of the screen that says "Escape this site," because if you're searching it on a shared computer,
right,
they're gonna see it. So what it does is you press that button and it takes you to some like benign, I don't remember what it is, but it's not anywhere related. It's like a totally different website, and it erases the
history.
Yeah. So smart.
So
upsetting that you need to do that.
Yeah.
But so smart.
Yeah. And I think it's important to remember too that when, we didn't talk like a whole lot of specifically, but I know you said you had moments of like bruising and things that happened, but even if it's not that, like physical abuse is still physical abuse if it's pushing, shoving, slapping, touching in a way that is harmful to somebody and too far across the line. And that, I think, like, I just think it's so interesting when people talk about domestic violence, and people always are like, oh yeah, they broke their bones, they broke their leg, they broke their arm, whatever. Like, that is an extreme version of domestic violence. Like, it is also not okay to push somebody or to spit in their face or, belittle them and even push somebody down into a chair. That's not okay to do that. So just being aware of that, and that is okay to walk away from, or stand your grounds and say, don't touch me like that. And so just things to keep in mind for people, that like there are other ways to be abused that are not a physical bruise, but it can be mentally, emotionally, spiritually, verbally, physically, all of that. So
I think the emotionally is the one that's the kind of hidden, because you can be broken down.
Yeah, and it's
words.
easy to hide that one.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, I love you. I'm so proud of you for everything that you've been through and where you've come to and your story, and I'm excited for you and Cody. I like a happy ending to do this.
I like a happy ending.
And like a celebration, and just seeing you grow and learn. And I mean, we're always working on ourselves.
And it gets better every single day. It really does. Like someone recently, a friend of mine who doesn't really know anything about it, but knows like the gist, she goes, oh, there's this show. I just wanted to let you know, like, I don't know where you're at right now with this, but there's this essence of X, Y, and Z, and just in case it might be triggering to you. And I was like, I really appreciate that. Yeah. Saying that. And then we kind of talked about it, and it opened the door. Yeah. So she knows. So she's like, oh, look out for that. And then I mentioned, oh, this is usually how I see that in portrayed in movies and TV shows and X, Y, and Z. And so it opened a greater conversation. Yeah. And so it's just one of those things where it's just like Jesus. If we open the conversation, it can blossom. Share it. But if you're quiet about it, and if you pretend that it doesn't exist, except in your own little personal life, you're not really living up to your full potential. Which is, and that's the point of the podcast, is to share and heal and be honest and open, because this stuff happens all the time. It's happening right now as we're talking, sitting here. Somebody is being is questioning their sanity right now, and saying, is it my fault?
And trying to figure out what is happening. And so that's really important in multiple ways, and just being open and sharing your story. I think like with your friend, it helped you two get closer together. It helped you be able to share something that maybe she didn't know. And it also just taught both of you and her, like, how do you do this to somebody that's been through something like this? And maybe you don't understand. I've never been physically abused, so I don't know what that is like, but even hearing what you're saying with a friend, like, oh, this is in this show, maybe it's going to trigger you. So yeah, it's good stuff. More to come.
I promise my next story is not going to be as heavy.
Skydiving nuggets with Jennifer. No, but we do laugh a lot, and we both have come really far, I think, in our journeys and what we've gone through. But thank you for sharing your story. There's more to come. And stay tuned.
See you soon.
Some little fun jingle. Yeah. The Rocky Road Podcast. With the sniffle. Really made it.